Hey guys, tonight we arrive somewhere you didn't plan on stopping, which is usually how the best naps begin. You're standing just outside a caravan gate as the sun gives up for the evening, the sky doing that soft gradient thing it only does when nobody's rushing anymore. The walls in front of you are thick, practical, and not trying to impress anyone. They've seen dust storms, tired camels, and people who swore they'd never travel again until they did. You're dusty, not romantically dusty, just dusty. The kind of dust that gets into your sandals, your clothes, and possibly your soul. You probably wouldn't survive this long term, by the way. No coffee breaks, no snacks you recognize, and absolutely no idea where the nearest pharmacy is. But for tonight, you're fine. Tonight, you're just here to rest. A wooden gate creaks open, because of course it does. Nobody oiled hinges in a hurry back then. You step inside the Caravanserai, a roadside inn designed specifically for travelers on the Silk Road to eat, sleep, and pretend they weren't exhausted. This isn't luxury travel. This is everyone smells equally bad, so it's fair travel. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, go ahead and comment where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somewhere, someone else is probably also half awake, wondering how they ended up here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk further in and the sound changes immediately. Outside, the wind in the open road had too much space to echo. Inside, everything is contained. Hooves thump softly against packed earth. Someone coughs. A camel makes a noise that suggests it has opinions but no intention of sharing them clearly. The air smells like hay, smoke, and something vaguely edible. Caravanserais like this one exist all across the Silk Road, stretching from East Asia to the Mediterranean. That's your solid historical fact for the night. These inns were placed roughly a day's journey apart, because even in antiquity, planners understood the importance of not pushing people or animals too far. Historians agree they were essential to trade, communication, and survival along these routes. Also, they were essential to sitting down. You set your pack down near the wall. The floor is hard, but honestly, after a day of walking, it might as well be memory foam. Around you, travelers quietly claim spaces the way people do when everyone's too tired to argue. There's an unspoken agreement happening. Nobody's here to impress anyone. You don't even ask names. Names are for mourning. A merchant nearby loosens his belt with the relief of someone who's been waiting hours to do exactly that. Somewhere else, a guard leans against the spear, eyes half closed, but still doing his job. Security here is real, but relaxed. Caravanserais are fortified structures, often with thick walls and a single entrance. Bandits exist, yes, but they prefer easier targets than a place full of awake, cranky travelers. Here's a quirky detail you might not expect. Some caravanserais had latrines with basic plumbing systems, including drainage channels. Not glamorous, but deeply appreciated. Comfort is relative, and after a long journey, not having to go outside in the dark ranks extremely high. You lean back against the wall and listen. Languages drift through the air. Persian, Arabic, bits of Turkic speech, something that might be Chinese or might just be someone mumbling into their beard. Communication here relies heavily on gestures, shared experience, and pointing at things until someone nods. You notice the stars above the open courtyard, framed perfectly by stone. No light pollution, no apps telling you what you're looking at, just patterns people have been memorizing for centuries. Travelers use these same stars to navigate, to tell stories, to argue about direction. Historians still wonder how much of Silk Road navigation relied on precise astronomical knowledge versus I'm pretty sure it's that way. A fire crackles softly. Someone feeds it a little more wood, not enough to make it dramatic. Drama takes energy. You don't have energy. There's a strange comfort in knowing this place has hosted thousands of people exactly like you. People with sore feet, uncertain futures, and just enough hope to keep moving. Traders carrying silk, spices, paper, or ideas. Pilgrims heading somewhere sacred. Messengers with news that will arrive weeks late and still be important. You stretch your legs out immediately and regret it because your muscles remind you they exist. This is normal. This is also when you realize everyone here is pretending not to be uncomfortable out of politeness. Ancient manners are mostly about shared suffering. A camel nearby sighs loudly and lies down in a way that suggests it has perfected the art of complaining without words. You respect that. There's a low murmur of conversation now, gentle and unhurried. No one raises their voice. Even jokes are delivered softly, like everyone's already agreed this is a place for winding down. Someone laughs once, then apologizes instinctively. Old habits die hard. You think about the road that led you here, stretching back into darkness. The Silk Road isn't a single road, despite the name. It's a network of routes, shifting over time based on politics, climate, and who annoyed whom recently. That uncertainty is part of the experience. You don't control the road, you negotiate with it. As the fire settles into glowing embers, your breathing slows without you telling it to. This is the trick of places like this. They're designed to make rest inevitable. Thick walls block the wind, familiar routines take over. You don't have to decide what's next tonight. Tonight is just for stopping. You close your eyes for a moment, then open them again just to make sure the stars are still there. They are, reliable, quiet, unconcerned. You shift slightly, finding a position that feels almost comfortable, and let the sounds blend together. The animals, the fire, the low voices, the distant wind against stone.
You wake up
Tomorrow
just
you'll
enough
move
to
again.
realize you
Tomorrow
never
has
fully fell
opinions.
asleep,
But
which
right now,
feels
you're
historically
exactly
accurate.
where you're supposed
The ground
to be.
beneath you hasn't softened overnight, but your standards have quietly lowered. That's another thing long-distance travel teaches you. Comfort is flexible if you're tired enough. Around you, the Caravanserai has settled into its nighttime personality. The fire is mostly embers now, glowing like it's trying not to wake anyone. Someone nearby shifts and sighs, the universal sound of a human reconsidering every life choice that led to sleeping on the floor. You consider rolling over, then decide against it. Movement feels like too much commitment. Near the wall, you notice a neat little line of footwear. Sandals, boots, something that might once have been shoes but has since chosen a more abstract form. Shoes by the door, or at least by the wall, isn't about tidiness, it's about survival. You don't want to trip over someone's travel-worn boots in the dark, and you definitely don't want to step into anything that wasn't there yesterday. This small ritual shows up across cultures along the Silk Road. Removing shoes signals rest, trust, and a shared understanding that no one's going anywhere fast tonight. That's your widely accepted fact for this section. Daily routines, even simple ones like footwear placement, helped maintain order in communal travel spaces. When people from dozens of backgrounds share a single courtyard, etiquette becomes the real infrastructure. You slip your own sandals off, nudging them into a spot that feels polite. They land with a soft thud, dust puffing gently like they're exhaling too. Your feet feel strange without them, lighter but also very aware of the ground. The stone is cool now, holding on to the night air. Somewhere to your left, a man carefully folds a cloth and uses it as a pillow. This isn't improvisation, it's a skill. Travelers develop entire systems for sleeping comfortably with very little. Rolled cloaks become mattresses, saddlebags become backrests. If minimalism had a birthplace, it might be right here, surrounded by camels. You hear a quiet conversation nearby, more murmuring than talking. Two traders are comparing routes in low voices, not because it's a secret, but because it's late. One swears the northern path is safer. The other insists the southern route has better food. Historians still wonder how many major trade decisions were made based on arguments like this, rather than maps or politics. Speaking of food, the smell lingers. Something stewed earlier. Lentils, maybe, or grains mixed with whatever spices survived the journey. Caravanserai meals were practical and filling, designed to keep people moving, not impress them. A lesser-known detail, many inns provided communal cooking spaces, but travelers often brought their own ingredients. It's like a medieval potluck, except everyone's exhausted. Your stomach makes a very soft sound, then behaves itself. It knows better. The dust in the air finally begins to settle. During the day, it's unavoidable, kicked up by hooves, carts, wind, existence itself. At night, though, it drifts down and coats everything evenly, like a blanket no one asked for. You can feel it on your skin, fine and dry, but not unpleasant anymore. It's part of the uniform. You adjust your position slightly, leaning back against the wall. The stone is solid, reassuring. Caravanserai walls were built thick on purpose, sometimes several meters wide, to protect against weather and raids. That thickness also keeps temperature changes slow and gentle. Inside, it stays cooler during the day and warmer at night. Ancient climate control, quietly doing its job. A guard passes through the courtyard, footsteps measured and unhurried. He doesn't shine a light or clear his throat, he just walks, checking shapes and shadows. Security here relies on presence more than force. Most troublemakers prefer easier places, ones without witnesses and walls. You realize how quiet it is now. Not silent, just balanced. Everyone's noises have synchronized into something like harmony. Breathing, shifting, an occasional cough. Even the camels have stopped complaining, which you take as a good sign. When camels are calm, everyone else can relax. Your thoughts begin to wander, as they tend to do when there's nothing demanding your attention. You think about home, whatever that means for you right now. Maybe it's a place, maybe it's just the idea of familiarity. Many Silk Road travelers spent months, even years away from anything resembling permanence. Historians debate how this affected their sense of identity. Were they from somewhere, or were they from the road itself? Someone nearby snores softly, then stops, as if embarrassed. No one reacts. This is a judgment-free zone. You notice small details you missed earlier. The way the courtyard is laid out so water can drain when it rains. The hooks along the walls for hanging gear. The worn stone near the entrance where thousands of feet have passed. These places are designed by experience, not theory. Every feature exists because someone said this would be useful. There's a quiet joke forming in your mind that if you tried this lifestyle now, you'd last maybe half a day before asking where the charging station is. You smile faintly, then let the thought drift away. Modern comforts feel very far from here, and that's kind of the point. Your breathing slows again, syncing with the space around you. You're not fully asleep, but you're not fully awake either. This in-between state is familiar to travelers across time. It's where reflection happens, where plans form loosely, where worries shrink just enough to be manageable. The night air moves gently through the courtyard, carrying the faintest hint of distant desert. Tomorrow, you'll put your shoes back on. You'll gather your things, listen to more opinions, and start moving again. But that's not now. For now, your sandals are by the wall. The dust has settled. The road is paused. And you let yourself rest right there.
Sleep comes in pieces here, arriving politely and leaving without explanation. You drift in and out, carried by the low murmur of voices that never quite disappear. At some point, you become aware of the fire again, not blazing, just alive enough to glow. Someone has added a log with the kind of care usually reserved for tucking in a child. Nearby, a small group sits close together, sharing the fire's last warmth. This is where the quiet gossip lives. Not the loud, exciting kind, but the soft exchange of information that might be useful later or might just make the night pass more pleasantly. You're not really listening, but your brain collects fragments anyway. One man mentions a city ahead where the bread is unusually good. Another claims the local ruler taxes spices less than wool, which seems suspiciously specific. A third swears he once saw a caravanserai with tiled floors and fountains, and everyone nods politely without believing him. This is a widely accepted fact of human behavior.
Tired people will listen to almost anything if it's said calmly enough. Historically, these shared fires were information hubs. News, prices, political shifts, and rumors all moved along the Silk Road through conversations exactly like this. Formal messengers existed, yes, but gossip traveled faster and with more personality. Merchants often knew about distant events weeks before official announcements arrived. Accuracy varied. You shift slightly, pretending not to eavesdrop, which is unnecessary because no one cares. Privacy here is a flexible concept. The fire crackles, punctuating the conversation like it's offering commentary. Someone makes a joke, dry, understated, about a camel that refused to stand up for an entire morning out of spite. A few people chuckle softly. Even centuries ago, humor leaned heavily on shared inconvenience. The joke doesn't need a punchline. The camel is the punchline. A lesser-known detail, some caravanserais employed permanent staff who lived on-site, caretakers, guards, cooks, people who heard these stories night after night. Imagine the patience required. They knew which rumors were reliable and which ones reappeared every season with new details. Historians still wonder how much of what we consider oral history was quietly filtered by people like this, who simply nodded and remembered. The fire's warmth reaches you in gentle waves. It's not enough to heat the whole courtyard, but it doesn't need to. Just knowing it's there is comforting. Fire, after all, is one of humanity's oldest sleep aids. It signals safety, community, and the end of the day's work. You notice how people position themselves, close enough to share heat, far enough to keep personal space. There's an unspoken geometry to it. No one draws lines, but everyone respects them. Even the animals seem to understand this, clustering without crowding. A guard joins the group briefly, warming his hands. He listens more than he speaks. When he does talk, it's practical, mentioning a stretch of road that's been muddy lately, suggesting an earlier start tomorrow. His tone isn't authoritative, it's collaborative. Security on the road depends on cooperation more than commands. You think about how different this feels from modern news consumption. No headlines flashing, no urgency. Information arrives slowly, wrapped in anecdotes, filtered through human voices. You're not expected to react immediately. You're allowed to just absorb it, or not. Someone mentions a legend about a hidden city beyond the mountains, full of gold and perfect weather. Another person gently points out that this story changes location every time it's told. They both smile. Legends, like comfort, are portable. This brings up one of those historical debates scholars still enjoy. How many myths were born simply from travelers needing something interesting to say by a fire? When you spend months on the road, the line between report and story can blur. Maybe that's how it's supposed to work. You feel your eyelids grow heavier as the conversation drifts towards silence. People don't announce they're done talking. They just stop. One by one, voices fade, replaced by the soft sounds of settling bodies. Someone wraps a cloak tighter. Someone else uses a bundle of rope as a pillow, which feels like a questionable choice, but you admire the commitment. The fire is left to burn down naturally. No one bothers to extinguish it completely. It will either last until morning or be replaced by daylight. Both outcomes are acceptable. You notice the smell of smoke lingering in your hair and clothes. It's not unpleasant. In fact, it's oddly reassuring. This scent will travel with you for days, a quiet reminder of shared nights and temporary shelters. Anthropologists believe smell plays a powerful role in memory, and you suspect this one will stick. A caravan shifts and lets out a low, contented sound. You decide that means everything is fine. As you settle back into your spot, you replay fragments of the gossip in your mind. Bread, taxes, tiled floors. None of it demands action right now. Tomorrow's decisions can wait. Tonight is just for being here, in this circle of warmth and half-truths. Your breathing evens out again. The fire dims further, turning from orange to red to something softer. The courtyard feels larger now, quieter, like it's exhaling. You let the sounds wash over you without meaning, without analysis. Words become rhythm. Thoughts slow down, stretching out like shadows. And somewhere between the last ember and the last whisper, sleep finally decides to stay a little longer.
You wake briefly because someone nearby is doing that careful, overly loud thing people do when they're trying not to wake anyone. There's a soft rustle of fabric, the gentle clink of metal, the unmistakable sound of curiosity winning over caution. Your eyes stay closed, but your attention drifts toward the movement anyway. Someone is opening saddlebags. This is not rude here. It's practically educational. When people travel together long enough, belongings become stories waiting to be told. You don't sit up, but you angle your head slightly, listening as if the objects themselves might explain why they exist. A bag opens, and the smell of spices escapes. Warm, earthy, faintly sweet. Cinnamon, maybe, or cardamom. Spices are valuable along the Silk Road, famously so. That's your widely accepted historical fact for this section. Spices weren't just about flavor. They were symbols of status, medicine, and preservation. Entire economies leaned gently but firmly on things you could sprinkle into food. Someone else reveals bolts of fabric, carefully wrapped. Silk, yes, but also wool, cotton, linen. Materials that don't get as much attention but were far more common. Silk gets the fame, but wool did the heavy lifting. Historians agree most traders dealt in practical goods far more often than luxury ones. It just doesn't sound as exciting to say, I traveled 3,000 miles with very reliable socks. A quiet chuckle moves through the group as one traveler pulls out something unexpectedly ordinary. Wooden combs. Simple, smooth, clearly handmade. Hair care doesn't stop just because you're crossing continents. This is one of those lesser-known details. The Silk Road wasn't only about exotic items. It moved everyday objects, habits, and expectations. People wanted to feel normal, even far from home. You imagine the comb passing through many hands, picked up, examined, nodded at. Someone comments that it's good craftsmanship. Another asks where it's from. The answer is vague. Place names blur after a while. East and West become relative concepts. A bag thumps softly as it's set down, followed by a small metallic rattle. Coins. Different shapes, sizes, metals. Some stamped with faces, others with symbols. Some worn smooth enough to feel anonymous. Money along these routes is complicated. Barter exists, trust exists. Sometimes neither works and people improvise. Historians still debate how often transactions relied on formal currency versus mutual agreement and reputation. You suspect reputation mattered more than any coin. On the road, word travels fast, and bad behavior has long legs. Someone pulls out a small bundle wrapped in cloth and hesitates before opening it, like it might be personal. Inside are dried fruits, dates, figs, maybe apricots. Snacks, practical, comforting, quietly precious. Food that lasts is the real luxury. You feel a faint pang of hunger again, but it passes. Your body understands this is not the moment. There's a brief discussion about medicinal items. Herbs, powders, things ground finely enough to seem convincing. One traveler mentions a remedy for stomach trouble. Another swears by something completely different. Neither looks fully confident. This sparks one of those gentle historical questions. How much of ancient medicine worked because it worked, and how much worked because people believed it would? The debate drifts without resolution. A small laugh breaks out when someone admits they once traded for a miracle cure that turned out to be scented chalk. No one mocks him. Everyone's been there in some form. On long journeys, hope is an easy thing to sell. You shift slightly, your shoulder pressing into the wall. The stone feels warmer now, having absorbed body heat and firelight. The Caravanserai continues its quiet work around you, holding, sheltering, waiting. Another bag opens, and the sound is unmistakable. Paper. Thin, precious sheets, protected carefully from moisture.
Paper is still relatively rare in many places and incredibly valuable for record-keeping, letters, and contracts. This is one of those moments where you feel history pivoting gently. The spread of paper technology along these routes will change everything, slowly but permanently. You imagine the letters these sheets might become: messages to family, business agreements, notes that will be read and reread. Some will arrive late, some won't arrive at all. Historians still wonder how many personal stories were lost simply because paper didn't survive the journey. The rummaging slows. Bags are closed again, contents return to their places. There's a sense of satisfaction, like checking on something familiar before sleeping. Possessions here aren't about wealth, they're about continuity. They remind you who you were before the road and who you're hoping to be after it. Someone makes a quiet joke about how everything they own now fits into 3 bags and a bad attitude. It earns a few soft laughs. Minimalism, again, asserting itself without a manifesto. You realize how little you actually need right now. A place to lean, air that isn't moving too fast, sounds that don't demand attention. The road has stripped life down to essentials, and tonight, those essentials are enough. As the last bag is secured, the courtyard settles again. The fire sighs. The stars continue their slow, indifferent watch. Objects return to being just objects, waiting for morning. Your thoughts drift, unfocused. Images of silk and combs and coins blur together, losing their edges. The inventory of the day is complete. Nothing more needs to be checked. You let the quiet reclaim the space, and yourself with it.
You awake again, somewhere between dreaming and listening to the night breathe around you. The fire is now a memory of warmth, just a faint glow on the edges of your vision, and the courtyard hums with the subtle rhythm of bodies settling, shifting, and occasionally sighing. You lie on your back and tilt your head slightly, letting your gaze drift upward. Stars, thousands of them, scattered across the deepening black, unbothered by walls or travelers or questions of value. You can almost hear them whispering the names people gave them centuries ago, names that may have changed in every village along the road. You think of home, or at least what home used to mean before you began this journey. Maybe home is not a place at all, but the people, the smells, the sense that you are known and expected. On the road, that definition stretches and bends. Nights like these, the definition contracts to a single courtyard, a single fire that has now died, and 1,000 small sounds that make you feel vaguely safe. The feeling is enough. Counting stars is a nightly practice for some travelers. Ancient nomads used them to navigate deserts and mountains, and you can't help but trace imaginary lines with your finger, as if you could map the roads in the sky. One widely accepted fact is that star navigation allowed merchants to maintain remarkably accurate routes over centuries. A misplaced turn could mean days of lost time, which, when you're riding with a stubborn camel or a temperamental mule, is not trivial. Some nights, it's the only thing keeping you awake, patterns in the stars against the soft hum of distant animals. A lesser-known detail: some traders memorized entire constellations to signal danger, landmarks, or safe water sources to their companions, like a quiet Morse code of light and memory. Historians still wonder if some star patterns we see today were shaped as much by human travel needs as by cosmic happenstance. You tilt your head and imagine trying to teach someone this code while half asleep, which seems like an impossible but charming feat. The air smells faintly of crushed herbs and dry earth. Somewhere nearby, someone stirs, probably dreaming of mountains, rivers, or the perfect loaf of bread waiting in a city far away. Your ears pick up the soft padding of hooves from an animal shifting in its sleep. Camels, mules, donkeys, each with their personality and temper, each gently complaining without language. One of them snorts in the night,
and the sound somehow settles into the rhythm of your own heartbeat. You find it amusing. Animals on the road have opinions, and they're often more consistent than humans. You wonder how many others are awake on this stretch of the Silk Road, miles or even hundreds of miles away. Are they counting stars too, tracing constellations for safety or curiosity? Do they sigh, nudging blankets around them? There is a connection across time and space here, a subtle, shared endurance. Some of the stars are just bright enough to cast shadows in the courtyard. You notice them flicker against the walls, a gentle, natural light show that no lantern or fire could replicate. Shadow and light, dust and stone, the quiet of night. You lean into the sensory experience. Travelers often spoke of these nights in letters and stories. The constancy of the sky becomes a silent companion. A nearby merchant murmurs something indistinct, half in Arabic, half in a language you can't place. You catch fragments: river, mountains, safer, tomorrow. His words float across the courtyard, unclaimed. You take them in without needing to respond. Knowledge here travels softly. Observation is enough. And then you consider distance. How far are you from where you started? Weeks? Months? Somewhere in that distance, your memory of comfort and home is mingling with your awareness of motion. Travelers along these routes were experts at longing and acceptance at the same time. You feel that same duality now, missing what was familiar while appreciating what exists here, under these stars, within these walls. Sleep teeters again at the edges of your mind, lightly brushing your consciousness. You welcome it, letting the air, the smells, the soft, distant noises carry you down. Somewhere, a camel's stomach rumbles. It is gentle, oddly grounding, and you allow a small smile. Tomorrow, there will be dust, early sun, and movement. Tonight, there is only this, the soft harmony of stillness and the quiet questions of the sky. You start to imagine the paths you'll walk when the road resumes. Mountains, deserts, small villages, markets bustling in the muted pre-dawn light. How far is too far, and what would you trade to get there faster? These are questions travelers ask themselves constantly, often silently, always respectfully. There's no urgency now, only a gentle curiosity and the slow unfolding of a journey that has already begun. You notice subtle patterns, the way wind moves through the walls, the way dust drifts in faint shafts of moonlight, and every living thing in the courtyard has a rhythm. You align your breathing with that rhythm. Inhale, hold, exhale. The night hums quietly. You feel yourself sinking with it, the pace of stars and stones, of people and animals, becoming indistinguishable from your own heartbeat. A faint memory surfaces, maybe from a letter long ago, maybe imagined, someone remarking that the road never really ends, only pauses. You understand that better now. The pauses, the stops at caravanserais, the moments leaning against stone, the quiet star-counting nights, these are as important as movement itself. They are the way travelers stitch the road into life rather than just passing through it. Somewhere, a distant bell tolls. Not urgent, not alarming, just a gentle punctuation, like a sentence ending softly. Your eyelids are heavy now. The courtyard, the stars, the fireless glow, the slight chill of the stone beneath you, all of it becomes a cocoon. You are both observer and participant, aware and resting, present in a space that has hosted countless others before you and will host many more after. The questions remain. How did the Silk Road truly connect cultures? How much did trade shape thought? And how many dreams were whispered beneath these same stars? But you set them aside. not ignoring them, only shelving them gently, letting the night keep its secrets for now. Your body relaxes further, muscles loosen, breath deepens. You imagine yourself as part of the soft rhythm of the courtyard, the dust, the stones, the animals, the muted conversations, all merging into one gentle current that rocks you towards sleep. You are ready to drift, carried by history, by night, by the unspoken companionship of countless travelers who have walked, rested, and gazed at these same stars before you.
You don't wake so much as resurface, like a thought slowly remembering itself. The night has shifted. It's deeper now, thicker somehow, as if the darkness has settled in and decided to stay a while. The stars are still there, but quieter, dimmed by thin clouds drifting lazily across the sky. You notice the cold first. Nothing sharp, just a polite reminder that the desert doesn't believe in consistency. Nearby, someone clears their throat softly. Not an announcement, more like a signal. The night watch is changing. Guards move through the courtyard with the careful confidence of people who know exactly where every stone sits. Their steps are slow, deliberate. No armor clanks dramatically. No one wants that. Protection here relies on familiarity and presence, not spectacle. That's your widely accepted historical fact for this stretch of the journey. Caravanserais were guarded, but rarely militarized. Safety came from numbers, routine, and reputation more than force. One guard pauses near the gate, stretching his shoulders with a quiet groan that suggests he's been awake for a while. Another leans his spear against the wall, rubbing his hands together for warmth. They exchange a few words, short, practical, almost boring. This section of the road has been quiet. No unusual movement, animals calm, fires contained. The best possible report. You appreciate boring now. Boring means nothing is happening to you. Somewhere behind you, someone snores. It's not aggressive snoring, more like a gentle rhythmic hum, the sound of a person fully committed to unconsciousness. Another sleeper shifts and mutters, possibly arguing with someone in a dream. No one reacts. Everyone here understands that sleep is a fragile thing and not to be judged. A camel lets out a low, vibrating sound that might be contentment or might be commentary. It's hard to tell. Camels are famously expressive in ways that feel personal. You imagine one of them keeping mental notes on everyone's competence. You suspect you rank low. A lesser-known detail about these night watches, guards often rotated not just to stay alert, but to prevent resentment. No one wants to be the person who always gets the coldest hours. Fairness matters when people depend on each other for survival. Historians still wonder how many informal rules governed life on the road, rules never written down but strictly followed. You pull your cloak a little tighter around yourself. The fabric is rough but familiar. It smells faintly of smoke and dust, and something that might once have been grass. Comfort is no longer about softness, it's about recognition. Your body knows this cloak now. It knows how it falls, where it scratches, how it keeps just enough warmth in. The guards' silhouettes move slowly along the walls, their shadows stretching and shrinking with the moonlight. One pauses to look up at the sky, scanning clouds and stars. Weather matters more than politics out here. A sudden storm can undo days of planning. You hear him murmur something about the wind direction. Another guard nods. Decision made. You wonder briefly how often danger actually came in the night. Stories love the idea of bandits and surprise attacks, but reality tends to be more practical. Bandits prefer roads, not fortified inns. They prefer daylight, confusion, and targets that can't lock a gate behind them. Caravanserais were designed to be inconvenient for troublemakers. Still, the watch exists, just in case, just in respect of possibility. Your thoughts drift toward trust. You are surrounded by strangers, people whose names you don't know, whose lives you'll never fully understand. And yet, you sleep here, exposed, because the structure and the shared understanding make it possible.
Trust, you realize, is another traded commodity along the Silk Road. Fragile, valuable, constantly negotiated. A guard stops near where you lie, not looking at you directly, but acknowledging your presence. He adjusts his stance, leaning slightly against the wall. You feel oddly reassured. You don't need him to speak. His being there is enough. Somewhere farther off, beyond the walls, an animal calls out, a night sound, distant and uninterested in your plans. The guards don't react. They know the difference between routine noise and something worth worrying about. Experience sharpens attention in quiet ways. You feel yourself sinking again, the edges of your awareness softening. But before sleep fully claims you, your mind latches on to a small human detail. Guards sometimes fell asleep on duty. Not often, not intentionally, but it happened. Records mention fines, reprimands, second chances. Historians still debate how strict enforcement really was, especially on long, uneventful nights like this one. You imagine a guard nodding off for just a moment, dreaming of home or warm bread, only to wake with a start and check the courtyard sheepishly. No harm done. The night keeps moving. The snoring nearby changes rhythm, then stops. The person shifts and settles again. You hear fabric brushing stone, the soft exhale of someone sinking deeper into rest. Sleep here is communal. One person's movement ripples outward, then fades. The cold creeps a little closer, but it's manageable. You adjust again, tucking your hands into your sleeves. Your breath fogs faintly in the air. Inhale, exhale. Slow, steady, unremarkable. A guard hums under his breath, not a song you recognize, not even a melody really, just a sound to stay awake. It blends with the night so well you almost miss it. Music doesn't need an audience here. It's functional, personal. You think again about how many nights like this have passed in this same space. Different centuries, different empires, same routines. People sleeping, guards watching, animals complaining quietly. The continuity is comforting. You are not special here, and that's a relief. Your thoughts begin to stretch, losing their edges. The courtyard feels farther away, as if you're viewing it through water. The guards' movements blur into slow, looping patterns. The night no longer asks anything of you. You let yourself go, trusting the walls, the watch, the shared exhaustion. Tomorrow will bring movement, decisions, maybe disagreements about routes and weather. But for now, you are held in this pause. And as the watch continues, steady and unremarkable, you drift back into sleep, carried by the simple, ancient agreement that tonight, at least, you are safe.
You wake to the unmistakable sound of someone chewing thoughtfully, as if deeply reconsidering their life choices with every bite. It's still dark, but not quite night anymore. The sky has softened, trading its deepest black for something closer to charcoal. This is the hour where sleep loosens its grip but doesn't fully let go. The smell reaches you before your eyes open fully. Warm grain, something fried or at least heated, a hint of sweetness that doesn't belong to dessert so much as survival. Midnight snacks are happening. This isn't indulgence, it's strategy. On long journeys, people eat when they can, not when the clock suggests. That's your widely accepted fact here. Silk Road travelers adjusted meals around weather, fatigue, and opportunity, rather than fixed schedules. Hunger doesn't care about tradition. You roll slightly onto your side and open one eye just enough to confirm what's happening. A small group has gathered near the edge of the courtyard, close to where cooking supplies are kept. A low flame flickers, carefully controlled, polite. No one wants to wake the entire caravan with enthusiasm. Someone hands around flatbread, still warm. Another produces a small pot with something thick and aromatic. Lentils, maybe, or chickpeas, or a mystery combination that tastes better than it looks, which is most road food. You accept a piece without ceremony. Refusing would be strange. Accepting is easier. You take a bite and immediately understand why people ate like this. It's simple, filling, and designed to keep you moving.
There's a joke murmured about how the food tastes better at this hour because your standards are asleep. It earns a quiet laugh. 2 light jokes per section was the goal, but this one counts. A lesser-known detail, digestive trouble was one of the most common complaints among travelers. New water sources, unfamiliar ingredients, and irregular eating schedules didn't help. Some caravanserais even kept lists, mental or literal, of which wells were safe and which were approached with caution. Historians still debate how much of ancient travel planning revolved around avoiding stomach issues rather than danger. Someone offers a dried fruit as a chaser, dates, sweet enough to feel like a reward. You chew slowly, aware of how the quiet amplifies every sound. Chewing feels loud at night, like you're breaking some unspoken rule. No one seems to mind. A man nearby rubs his stomach and mutters something about regret. Another nods sympathetically, offering a pinch of herbs meant to help digestion. Whether it works or not is unclear, but the gesture matters. Care on the road often comes in small, unofficial forms. You lean back slightly, feeling the warmth of food spread through you. It's grounding. There's something deeply reassuring about eating in the dark with strangers who are just as tired as you are. No small talk, no expectations, just fuel. Someone mentions a remedy involving vinegar and salt. Another counters with fermented milk. A third insists the real solution is walking it off, which is received with polite skepticism. This sparks one of those open historical questions. How much of ancient dietary advice was based on observation and how much on stubborn tradition? The debate drifts without conclusion, as most good ones do. The fire crackles softly, then settles. A camel nearby shifts and makes a sound that suggests it too has opinions about the smell of food. You resist the urge to apologize to it. The group disperses slowly, each person returning to their chosen spot. No one rushes. The goal isn't efficiency, it's comfort. You brush crumbs from your cloak and resettle, feeling heavier in the best way. Your body responds immediately, drowsiness deepening now that hunger has been addressed. It's almost unfair how effective a simple meal can be. You think briefly about how modern life complicates eating with rules and schedules and expectations. Out here, food is just food, and that feels like progress. The courtyard quiets again. Someone nearby sighs contentedly. Another shifts closer to the wall. The guards continue their slow circuit, stepping around sleepers and supplies with practiced ease. You close your eyes, stomach warm, mind slower. The taste of grain and sweetness lingers, mixing with smoke and dust. It's not gourmet, but it's enough. As sleep pulls you back under, you make a mental note, half serious, half amused, that if you ever try to recreate this experience at home, it will absolutely not work. Context matters. Hunger matters. Stone floors matter. But here, now, in this in-between hour, it's perfect. Your breathing evens out again. The road waits patiently. The night finishes its work.
Sleep loosens its grip unevenly, like it's negotiating terms. You're not awake, not dreaming, just drifting in that soft middle space where sounds blur and thoughts stretch. Voices return, but they don't arrive clearly. They float past you, fragmented, overlapping, gentle enough not to demand attention. Someone nearby speaks in Persian, the cadence smooth and familiar even if the words aren't. Another voice answers in Arabic, slower, careful, like they're choosing each word as if it might be reused later. Somewhere else, a sharper sound cuts through, possibly Turkic, possibly someone clearing their throat in an ambitious way. Language here is layered, like blankets thrown over one another for warmth. This is your widely accepted fact for this part of the night. The Silk Road was one of history's greatest translators. Not formally, not efficiently, but constantly. Words, phrases, accents, and gestures passed along with goods.
People learned just enough of many languages to survive, trade, and occasionally misunderstand each other productively. You don't try to decode what's being said. Your mind doesn't want clarity right now. Instead, the sounds become texture, soft consonants, rounded vowels, pauses that feel intentional even when they're not. You half dream that the languages are talking to each other without needing the people anymore. A lesser-known detail, many travelers developed personal hybrid vocabularies, mixes of multiple languages, trade slang, and improvised gestures. These weren't official languages, just practical ones. Historians still wonder how many words were born this way and then disappeared again, never written down, used only by tired people trying to agree on prices or directions. Someone laughs quietly, misunderstanding something and enjoying it anyway. The laugh is universal. It doesn't need translation. You feel the weight of the night settle again, heavier now, like sleep is pulling you gently back under. The voices soften further, becoming echoes of echoes. You catch one word, maybe tomorrow, maybe river, maybe just a familiar tone, and then it slips away. A guard passes by, footsteps steady, humming faintly. His tune blends with the murmur of half-dreamed conversations, turning everything into a low, continuous sound. It reminds you of wind moving through tall grass or water flowing slowly over stones. You think briefly about how exhausting communication must be on the road. Constant listening, constant guessing, constant adjusting. And yet, people do it. They always have. There's a quiet optimism in that, the belief that understanding is possible even if imperfect. You drift again, deeper this time. Words lose meaning entirely now, becoming rhythm and breath. Your own thoughts slow to match them. There's nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to respond to. Somewhere in the distance, a voice fades mid-sentence as its owner gives in to sleep. The unfinished thought hangs in the air for a moment, then dissolves. No one notices. No one needs to. Your breathing evens out, matching the soft rise and fall of the space around you. The Caravanserai holds its languages, its stories, its half-finished conversations, and lets them rest. And you rest with them, carried gently on sounds you don't need to understand.
You surface slowly again. Not because anything is wrong, but because your mind has decided it wants to think, just a little, before surrendering once more. The courtyard feels wider now, as if the night has stretched it. The sky above is lighter than before, not with color yet, just with possibility. Someone nearby is unrolling something stiff and crackly. Parchment, or maybe paper reinforced with optimism. Maps. Maps along the Silk Road are suggestions. That's your widely accepted historical fact for this section. Cartography here is less about precision and more about confidence. Mountains are where mountains are expected to be. Rivers curve politely, even if in reality they absolutely do not. Distances are approximate in the same way soon is approximate. You don't open your eyes fully, but you imagine the map spread on the ground, held down at the corners by stones or mugs. Fingers trace routes slowly, pausing at landmarks that might exist, might have moved, or might only be real in the memory of someone's uncle. A lesser-known detail, many travelers relied more on verbal maps than drawn ones. Directions were passed on as stories. 3 days past the salt flats. Turn where the hills look like sleeping dogs. If you reach the river with red reeds, you've gone too far. Historians still debate how often these descriptions were intentionally vague, meant to protect profitable routes from competitors. You picture someone nodding seriously as they hear instructions that would absolutely confuse you. They'll remember it, though. They always do. The human brain is remarkably good at holding on to information when survival depends on it. A quiet disagreement murmurs near the map.
One person insists the road ahead bends east, another swears it bends south. Neither raises their voice. This isn't a fight, it's calibration. You can hear the patience in it. Being wrong out here doesn't just bruise your pride, it costs time, water, and energy. Someone makes a dry comment about how all roads eventually lead to more walking. It earns a soft, tired laugh. Humor, again, doing the quiet work of keeping people reasonable. You feel oddly grateful for modern navigation, then immediately realize that if you mention satellites right now, no one would be impressed. They'd just ask how much they weigh and whether they can be traded for grain. The map is folded again, decision made, or postponed, which is sometimes the same thing. Tomorrow's route will reveal itself gradually, through landmarks, conversations, and minor course corrections. Flexibility is built into the plan. You settle deeper into your resting place, letting the idea of uncertainty drift past without snagging you. Out here, not knowing exactly where you are is normal. It's even expected. The road doesn't demand certainty, just attention. Your breathing slows. The sky continues its gentle lightening. Somewhere far off, a bird considers waking up and decides against it. Maps can wait. Morning can wait. You let sleep take you again, carried not by directions, but by trust in the road and the people walking it with you.
You wake to a sound that feels intentional but not urgent. A bell. Not loud, not sharp, just clear enough to pass gently through the courtyard like a suggestion. It rings once, pauses, then rings again, as if checking whether anyone is listening. This is how mornings begin here. No alarms, no panic, just a reminder that the night has done its job. The sky has shifted again. This time there's no denying it. Pale blue stretches across the open square above you, thin and cool like fresh linen. The stars have quietly slipped away without ceremony. Dawn has arrived, but it's in no hurry to make a scene. This is your widely accepted historical fact for the morning. Many caravanserais used bells, calls, or simple routine sounds to coordinate departures before sunrise. Leaving early mattered. The road was easier when the heat hadn't yet decided to be aggressive. You sit up slowly, joints making a series of quiet objections. Around you, others do the same, moving carefully, blinking into the new light. No one speaks much yet. Words feel too heavy for this hour. A guard walks through the courtyard, not to hurry anyone, just to exist visibly. His presence says, yes, this is happening, without asking for confirmation. Animals stir. Camels rising with dramatic reluctance, mules shaking dust from their coats like they're offended by the morning. A lesser-known detail, mornings like this were often when final negotiations happened. Prices agreed to the night before might be revisited just briefly. Favors requested, routes confirmed again, just to be sure. Historians still wonder how many trade deals succeeded or failed based purely on someone's mood before breakfast. You stretch, then immediately regret it. Your muscles remind you that you slept on stone, not on anything designed by someone who cared about spines. Still, there's a clarity in the discomfort. You're awake now, properly. The bell rings one last time, softer than before. That's enough. People begin gathering belongings with practiced efficiency. Sandals are retrieved, boots are pulled on, straps tightened, packs lifted and set down again because someone forgot something and absolutely knew they would. You slide your feet back into your sandals. The leather feels familiar, shaped to you now. This small act signals the end of rest. Shoes mean movement. Everyone understands this without needing to say it. Someone nearby mutters a gentle complaint about mornings. Someone else responds with a joke about how the road doesn't care. It earns a few quiet smiles. Humor before sunrise is minimalist by nature. You glance toward the gate, where light spills in more freely now. Outside waits the road, unchanged, patient, full of opinions. Inside, the caravanserai has already begun to feel temporary again, like a dream fading as you wake. You take one last breath of the cool air,
dust and stone and yesterday's smoke mixing together. It's a smell you won't forget easily. It belongs to pause, not to motion. As the animals are led toward the exit and the courtyard empties piece by piece, you feel that familiar blend of reluctance and readiness. Rest has done what it can. Now it's the road's turn again. And as you move toward the gate with everyone else, the morning unfolds quietly around you, steady and unassuming, exactly the way it's done for centuries.
You step back into the courtyard, now fully awake in the way mornings insist upon. The air has changed again, cooler, sharper, edged with possibility and mild annoyance. Breakfast is happening, whether anyone feels ready for it or not. This is not a sit-down affair. There are no menus, no debates about options. Breakfast on the road is functional. That's your widely accepted historical fact for this section. Travelers along the Silk Road ate quickly in the morning, prioritizing energy and portability over pleasure. Flavor was welcome, but endurance was the real goal. Someone passes you a small bowl of something thick and warm. Porridge, maybe. Grain and water, possibly milk if luck and livestock have aligned. You eat it carefully, blowing on each spoonful like it might personally offend you if rushed. Nearby, flatbread appears again, torn and shared without comment. It's already going stale, which somehow makes it perfect. A camel ambles past, eyeing the food with unearned confidence. It pauses, leans its large, judgmental face closer than necessary, and snorts. Someone gently pushes it away, muttering something affectionate and insulting at the same time. This is a daily ritual. Camels are indispensable and absolutely aware of it. Here's a lesser-known detail. Camels were often assigned specific handlers, not because the animals required it, but because humans did. A familiar handler meant fewer misunderstandings, fewer injuries, and fewer emotional confrontations before sunrise. Historians still wonder how much of caravan success depended on animal psychology rather than logistics. You finish eating and immediately feel heavier, slower. Someone nearby rubs their lower back and complains softly about sleeping positions. Another person responds by describing their own aches in slightly more dramatic terms. This becomes a brief competition, then dissolves into laughter. Everyone loses. Everyone understands. The camels are loaded now, packs secured with practiced knots. There's an art to this, balancing weight so nothing rubs, shifts, or falls. A poorly packed camel will remind you of your mistake for hours. You watch hands move confidently, tightening ropes, adjusting straps, padding flanks. This is work done by feel, not measurement. A debate starts near the gate about the order of travel. Who goes first? Who brings up the rear? It's polite, but firm. Experience matters here. So does reputation. Someone suggests a compromise. Someone else nods. The road is negotiated again. You take a moment to look back at the Caravanserai. In daylight, it looks smaller somehow, more ordinary, just stone and space and practicality. But you know what it held overnight. Rest, stories, quiet trust. That knowledge stays with you longer than the walls. The camels grumble as they're led toward the exit, stepping carefully, dramatically, like they've been personally inconvenienced by the concept of walking. You follow, adjusting your pack, feeling the familiar pull on your shoulders. This weight is yours now. It's oddly comforting. As you pass through the gate, sunlight finally reaches you fully, warming your face. The road stretches ahead, pale and patient. The morning has settled into itself. Complaints fade. Movement begins. And with one last glance back, you step forward, breakfast behind you, the day unfolding quietly at your feet. The road wakes up slowly, and so do you. With every step, the stiffness from sleep loosens its grip, replaced by that familiar low-grade soreness that now feels like part of your personality. You walk beside the caravan as the sun climbs higher, not dramatically, just enough to remind everyone that shade is a finite resource. The landscape shifts almost imperceptibly. That's how it always works out here. One moment the ground is pale dust, the next it's scattered with stones that crunch politely underfoot. Nothing announces itself. Even change arrives quietly. This is another widely accepted historical fact. Long-distance trade routes like the Silk Road weren't dramatic highways, but subtle threads, worn into existence by repetition rather than design. The air smells faintly of dry grass and animal warmth. Somewhere ahead, someone starts humming. Not a song exactly, more like a sound that fills the silence without demanding attention. No one asks them to stop. It's oddly soothing, like a human version of wind moving through reeds. You walk near a trader whose pack includes small sacks of spice, cinnamon maybe, or cardamom. When the breeze shifts just right, you catch a hint of sweetness cutting through the dust. It feels luxurious, almost rebellious, that something so pleasant is traveling through such an unforgiving place. Here's a quirky detail most people don't realize. Spices weren't just valuable for flavor. They were used as breath fresheners, mild medicines, preservatives, and sometimes even bug deterrents. Historians still debate which of these uses mattered most to everyday travelers, as opposed to wealthy buyers far away who only cared about taste. The caravan settles into its rhythm. Step, shift, breathe. The camels sway gently like oversized metronomes, keeping time for everyone else. You notice how often people glance at the sky, not anxiously, just habitually. Weather is less of a backdrop here and more of a participant. Someone near you tells a story in fragments, half to themselves. It's about a town they passed years ago, one that doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe it does and they just never found it again. The story trails off without a conclusion. No one pushes for one. Out here, unresolved stories feel normal. A short rest is called near midday, not because anyone is exhausted, but because rest is preventative. You sit on a low rock, grateful it's not sharp, and sip water carefully. Too fast and you'll regret it. Too slow and someone will joke about you savoring it like wine. Balance is everything. You watch as a few people tend to the animals, checking hooves, adjusting loads. There's a quiet intimacy to it. These animals are co-workers more than tools. They complain, cooperate, and occasionally refuse to move out of spite. Everyone accepts this. As the break ends, you stand, stretch, and feel the road pull you forward again. There's no rush, no finish line in sight, just steady movement through time and space. And somehow, that feels enough.
You notice the terrain shift again, subtle this time. The soil changes from pale dust to a faintly reddish sand speckled with tufts of hardy grass that seems to exist solely to remind you that life persists in inconvenient places. You slow your pace slightly, more out of appreciation than fatigue, letting your senses absorb the landscape. This is one of those small lessons the road teaches. Borders are rarely walls. They're transitions you feel before you see them. Borders along these ancient routes weren't like the ones on maps. That's your widely accepted fact here. Often, a change in customs, a slight shift in spoken dialect, or even a subtle alteration in clothing marked the passage from one culture to another. Travelers could cross hundreds of miles without noticing, then suddenly realize they were somewhere entirely different just by observing small habits. You take note of the shift in how people adjust their packs, their gait, their conversations. It's subtle, but unmistakable if you pay attention. A lesser-known detail, some traders carried small tokens, charms, or gifts to present at informal border points. Not for bribes exactly, but as gestures of goodwill, a kind of quiet diplomacy. Historians still debate how much these objects influenced trade success versus how much they were merely tradition, like nodding politely while hoping everyone else plays along. You glance at the caravan beside you. The camels and mules seem unconcerned by the invisible lines you and the guards notice. Animals do not respect boundaries. Humans do, with habits and rituals that are almost invisible. There is comfort in that consistency.
If you pay attention, you notice small things: a shift in footwear preferences, the occasional new tool, a different spice hidden in a sack. Each change is small but cumulative. Someone mutters about pronunciation differences. A word that seemed clear yesterday now carries an unfamiliar accent. You smile quietly to yourself, imagining the countless conversations that ended in gentle misunderstandings rather than conflict. Humor, even understated, smooths transitions in ways maps cannot. The caravan pauses near a small water source. It's not marked on any map you've glimpsed, yet it exists faithfully. People fill vessels with careful precision. Animals drink in turns, each receiving its due without fuss. Water has always been more trustworthy than people, and out here, that's not an exaggeration. Your body relaxes as you sip slowly, the cool liquid spreading through you. It feels like alignment, like being in sync with both the road and the landscape. You think about language again, noticing how gestures, tone, and habit serve as bridges where words fail. You don't need to speak perfectly, you need to observe. Sometimes understanding isn't about translation, it's about timing, rhythm, and awareness. Historians still wonder how many effective conversations depended entirely on shared gestures, nods, and glances, rather than vocabulary. A small child appears at the edge of the caravan's path, eyes wide and curious. They point to a camel, then to a piece of bread someone carries, and laugh when the camel snorts back. You feel an uncomplicated warmth watching this exchange. Life continues in layers: trade, survival, humor, curiosity. Each moment is an intersection of countless human experiences. The road stretches ahead, undefined but inviting. Your steps align with its rhythm naturally now. There's no urgency in crossing borders. Instead, you move through them slowly, letting the transition sink in. You observe, you note, you participate quietly. And as the caravan resumes its gentle motion, you carry the small awareness that these invisible lines between lands, languages, and customs are as much about observation and care as any official declaration. You are crossing boundaries in every sense, moving not just geographically, but in understanding, patience, and quiet attentiveness.
The evening approaches in the way it always does out here, without ceremony, without asking permission. The light softens first, turning sharp edges gentle, sanding the day down until it feels manageable again. You don't need a clock to tell you this. Your body already knows. Your shoulders sag just slightly, your steps shorten, and conversation thins into comfortable silence. This is another widely accepted historical fact. Caravans planned their days around daylight, not distance. Where you stopped mattered less than when. Traveling after dark was possible, but rarely preferred. Too many risks, too many unknowns. So as the sun lowers, attention shifts from forward motion to finding a place that feels adequate. Not perfect, just adequate. The chosen stopping place is unremarkable at first glance. A shallow dip in the land, some scattered stones, a suggestion of shelter from wind. Someone nods, someone else agrees. Consensus is reached without ceremony, which is how you know it's the right spot. You help set things down, hands moving automatically now. Packs off, animals unburdened. The camels kneel with dramatic sighs, like office workers finally collapsing onto couches. One of them groans so loudly it feels intentional. You resist the urge to applaud. Here's a lesser-known detail. Many travelers believed animals sensed good resting places better than humans. If a camel refused to settle, people often reconsidered the spot. Historians still debate whether this was superstition, animal intuition, or simply humans outsourcing decision-making after a long day. A small fire is coaxed into existence, not a blaze, just a modest circle of warmth and light. The smell of smoke settles into your clothes, familiar and oddly reassuring. Food appears again, simple and repetitive, yet somehow welcome. You eat without thinking much about it, chewing slowly, aware of how tired you truly are now. Conversation returns, quieter this time. Stories grow shorter. Jokes land softer. Someone makes a dry comment about how tomorrow's road will surely be easier, and no one believes them, which makes it funny. You exhale through your nose in a way that counts as laughter. The sky deepens into color. First orange, then pink, then a blue so calm it feels intentional. Stars begin their slow appearance, one by one, unhurried. You tilt your head back and recognize a few shapes, not because you were taught them, but because humans have always tried to find patterns where there's comfort in doing so. You settle near the fire, close enough to feel warmth, far enough to avoid sparks. The ground is hard, but you've learned not to argue with it. Your body folds into rest with less resistance than it did weeks ago. That feels like progress. As the fire crackles softly and the caravan quiets, you realize the road has changed you. Not dramatically, not heroically, but gently, the way repetition always does. And as night fully arrives, wrapping the camp in stillness, you let yourself rest, knowing tomorrow will unfold when it's ready.
Night doesn't fall so much as it settles. It drapes itself over the camp carefully, like it knows everyone here is tired and doesn't want to startle anyone. The fire has burned down to a low, polite glow, just enough to remind you it's there if you need it. Most people have already gone quiet, wrapped in blankets, turned inward toward sleep. You lie on your back for a while, staring up. The stars are sharper here than anywhere you remember. Not brighter exactly, clearer. That's a widely accepted historical fact. Before modern lighting, night skies were far more detailed, more crowded, more honest. The heavens weren't a backdrop, they were part of daily awareness. You can see why people once built entire belief systems out of these patterns. A camel shifts nearby, letting out a low, rumbling sigh that sounds suspiciously like commentary. Someone mutters a response in their sleep. Even half-conscious, humans feel the need to reply. You smile faintly. Here's a lesser-known detail. Some Silk Road travelers believed sleeping with your head oriented a certain way, toward a star, a mountain, or the direction of home, could influence dreams or fortune. Historians still wonder whether this was spiritual belief, psychological comfort, or simply a way to feel less lost under such a vast sky. You adjust your blanket, listening. The night has layers of sound if you let it. A soft breeze moving through dry grass, the distant snort of an animal, fabric shifting as someone turns over. No sharp noises, no urgency, just life continuing at its lowest volume setting. Your thoughts drift, not racing, just wandering. You think about how far you've come, though distance feels abstract now. Days blur together, measured less by miles than by routines. Wake, walk, eat, rest, repeat. There's something deeply calming about that. Out here, complexity has been stripped down to essentials. You exist, you move, you rest. A quiet joke from earlier resurfaces in your mind, and you almost laugh before remembering how late it is. Even humor softens at night, becoming internal, private. You exhale slowly, feeling the day leave your body bit by bit. You realize you're no longer waiting for tomorrow. It will arrive whether you invite it or not. There's no planning you can do right now that would improve it. That acceptance settles over you like the night itself, unavoidable but gentle once you stop resisting. Your eyes grow heavy. The stars blur slightly, not because they've dimmed, but because you have. The ground beneath you is still firm, but your body no longer complains. It has learned what to expect. It has learned trust. And as sleep finally approaches, you feel the road pause with you, not ending, just resting, content to continue later. The fire is nearly out now, just a faint glow breathing quietly in the dark.
Your breathing slows without effort, deepening naturally, matching the steady rhythm of the night around you. There is nothing left to do, nowhere you need to be for a while. You are safe here, warm enough, still enough. Let your shoulders soften, let your jaw loosen. If thoughts drift in, let them pass like clouds crossing the stars, noticed, then gone. The road will remember itself. You don't need to. Imagine the sky gently dimming, the stars one by one fading into a soft, peaceful darkness. The sounds grow farther apart, slower until silence feels full instead of empty. You rest. End of script. Sweet dreams.